Hey everyone, welcome to a fresh, brand new episode of Show Me the Crypto. This week we chat with Bobby Lee, who is the CEO / co-founder of Ballet, but also he's just an OG in the space. Bobby's been around Bitcoin since 2011, the last 13 years, and this was a really fun conversation. Ulf, your thoughts?
Well, he's an OG in the space. He's been here for so long, since like 2011 or something. So to talk to a guy who's just even been around Bitcoin, been involved for that long is super interesting because he had so many stories to tell. He really dove in from the very beginning, how he got into Bitcoin, how he got into crypto. He started his own exchange in China's first Bitcoin exchange at the time. And how everything's developed since then, leading into his second business, Ballet, and what that's all about. It's a really interesting cold storage device for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So we covered a lot, and he's just an interesting guy to talk to. And more than anything, I think he can really explain Bitcoin and crypto in a simple way. That's a big focus for him and Ballet. And he's a great storyteller too. So he was telling some stories about Bitcoin and the history that are super interesting. So for me, it was a great interview for all those reasons.
That's one thing I picked up on, as well as Bobby's ability to explain somewhat complex ideas such as the Bitcoin halving into really, really simple terms where anyone could understand what that means, and using great examples. So this was a fun conversation. Ballet's doing a ton of really cool things. He shows us on camera, if you're watching the video version, some of the physical items that Ballet is producing. You're going to love this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto!
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the blockchain space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by OG Bitcoin proponent and founder / CEO of Ballet, Bobby Lee. Born in Ivory Coast, Bobby's early tech career intertwined with IBM, Microsoft, Yahoo, and Dell before he first discovered Bitcoin in early 2011. Later that year, Bobby went on to co-found China's first Bitcoin exchange, BTCChina, and today Bobby is driving global adoption of Bitcoin through his company, Ballet, his book, The Promise of Bitcoin, as well as his role as a member of the Bitcoin Foundation Board of Directors. Bobby, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be on your show.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on as well. And I want to start off. So beyond all the accolades that I just listed, you are also host of the Bobby Lee Bitcoin podcast. So my first question to you is, what's your preference? Do you like this, being the guest on a podcast, or do you prefer being the one interviewing somebody else?
I've done a bunch of both. And I don't have a strong preference. It's a different flavor. So obviously, coming onto your show and other people's show, you guys get to talk about your stuff. And on my show, on my own Bitcoin podcast show, Bobby the Bitcoin Show, it's really for new people coming in to understand Bitcoin, understand the importance of storage, cold storage. Because the last thing you want to do is to really grok and understand Bitcoin and put money in it, and only to lose it, after a few years or whatnot. And I've heard tons of these stories where people say, "Oh yeah, I bought Bitcoin back in so and so, but when it was worthless, and then now that it's worth $52,000, unfortunately, I can't find my private keys, I can't find my wallet, I can't access it." And these are really sad stories. So, but those are people like 5-10 years ago, and I just want to make sure people don't make the same mistakes these days.
I love that. And that ties in really well with what Ulf and I try to do as well. I mean, we are not we're very interested in the space. We're far from experts on the technology and that type of thing, but it's about creating this unintimidating content. And one of the coolest parts for us of doing these podcasts is talking to Bitcoin OGs like yourself, people who have been in the space for so long. So considering that you've been around for 13 years, I mean, I mentioned you founded China's first Bitcoin exchange.
That's right.
How would you grade how the crypto industry has done over the past 13 years? If you had to give it a letter grade, an A, B, C, D, how would you grade the crypto industry?
I think as an industry overall, I think there's two ways to look at it. I'm a Bitcoin fanatic or Bitcoin maximalist, if you will. I guess not all maximalists are the same, but I'm a Bitcoin guy, and sort of the crypto industry is certainly the larger industry, right? And it's sort of come around and wrapped around Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has done amazing. I think I would give Bitcoin an A+ in the last 13 years, right? At least an A, a solid A, if not an A+. I mean, there were some hiccups a few years ago with the block size wars, and there's always hiccups with regulation and the exchange, but that's normal, par for the course. Now, the crypto industry, the whole thing, starting with altcoins, right? And then at some point they were called shitcoins, and then we have ICOs, and then we had IEOs, we had stable coins, we had aside from exchanges, we had these lending platforms that went bust. We had a lot of Ponzi, schemes, and a lot of hit and run and rug pulls. And then we have the NFTs and now the ordinals. So obviously it's a mixed bag. I think on the one hand, a lot of people made money in the crypto, the so-called non-Bitcoin, but the crypto industry. But a lot of people also lost a lot of money, a lot of scams, a lot of money laundering. So with that, it's probably, what grade would I give it? Probably a B at best. B-, I was even thinking like a C+. It's a mixed bag, right? Now, for Ballet, we're trying to serve the whole crypto industry with really good, safe, reliable cold storage, trying to turn the tide and help people. It's not my prerogative in terms of what they invest in, but at least we can give them a solid solution for how to safekeep it properly and not get hacked. So with the non-Bitcoin type of crypto, you have two risks. You're taking the risk of the coin or the investment itself, whether that thing's going to make it big, and whether you sell at the right time, right? And then secondly is about the electronic, digital hacking, all those risks and the rug pulls and all that. Yeah.
And obviously a lot's happened. You've just graded these last 13 years between Bitcoin and more the general sort of crypto space. Like you said, it's a mixed bag. A lot's happened. But what in that time was maybe been most surprising to you? What's really been like, wow, I didn't see that coming. I didn't think crypto was going to go that direction.
That's a great question. I think about 10 years ago, about 10, 12 years ago is when the Bitcoin industry really splintered into the crypto industry. I distinctly remember, I think around 2013, 2014, when we have these altcoins, because prior to 2013, if you will, up until, it was Bitcoin. It was just Bitcoin, right? It was the crypto industry was the Bitcoin industry. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, the two words are synonymous. And now, fast forward 10 years later, some people still think that, by the way. Some people still think, right? But I, having been in it very deep, I see the whole crypto industry being very thriving, booming. but there's a sub industry which is like the Bitcoin stuff. For example, the recent the Bitcoin ETF approval in the U.S. Market. So that's Bitcoin specific. Yet the whole of crypto is getting a bump, so to speak. Now that's nothing. That's not bad or anything. It's just that these are Bitcoin specific developments, including the recent the recovery of the prices, right, of the crypto prices. I would say without hesitation, it's led by Bitcoin, right? As opposed to, it's not like, oh, Bitcoin price has gone up to $52,000 because of some other XYZ coin has gone up. I think the other way around. I think Bitcoin's gone up and it's pulled, all the other cryptos up, and some more than others, right? So back to your question about what's surprising is maybe when I first got in 2011, I got into the Bitcoin industry. I didn't expect to be hanging out in the crypto industry today, so to speak. So that's it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's not, you don't have a choice, right? It's not like, oh, I don't want this world and dump all my Bitcoin. It just comes with the industry, comes with the game, so to speak. Any other surprises? I think what doesn't surprise me is the amount of scams, the amount of fraud, the amount of people trying to get rich, a lot of greed. I think there's been a lot of greed over the last 13 years I've seen, and that surprises me a little bit. But then I wake up and I say, oh yeah, that's human nature. So who am I to be surprised by that? So on the one hand, it's a little bit shameful from a humanity perspective. There's so much greed, but on the other hand, I guess that's the human flaw. One of the big flaws of humanity, if you will, the greed and the fear and all that.
Yeah, you mentioned the ETF there, and was that surprising to you, and how that has played out now? What are your thoughts on the spot ETF and everything that transpired?
The ETF itself, the approval is not surprising to me. In fact, the book I wrote, The Promise of Bitcoin, that was published in, I think, May of 2021. And in the book, I made 15 predictions. And one of the predictions was about the ETF. And specifically, I wrote in there, it's going to be approved within 3 years, right? So I think we're right on track. I think, right, having it approved this past month, last month, came in right on target. So I'm not surprised at all. So I'm very happy. I think it's just the natural course of development. There's a bunch of other predictions in the book, but some of the big ones, the high level stuff is, Bitcoin is going to progress, and this is going to take 5-10 years, right? It's going to progress down to become a global reserve asset class where nation states, so in the early days, think about 10 years ago, 13 years ago, as individuals, these geeks, these hackers, these cypherpunks investing in Bitcoin for the libertarian reasons, right? And then you have the individuals coming in. And then only in the last 2 years, we now have corporations coming in, most famously with MicroStrategy, Tesla, and SpaceX all dipped their toes in, a few other companies. And then we're now starting to have countries coming in like El Salvador and so on. But we're at the tip of the iceberg. I think, give it 5-10 years, we're going to see nation states coming in and holding Bitcoin in a very proud and transparent way. That's their part of their national reserves, and that's what I think is going to happen. So these are very long-term directional stuff. That's why I'm saying, like, to answer your question about the ETF, that's really it's really par for the course. It's really expected. Yeah, no surprise at all.
What about the impacts that, like, does the ETF cause any impacts on the overall decentralization of Bitcoin with so much dollars coming into the system? I read somewhere, I don't know the specifics around the percentage, but something like over 10% of Bitcoin is now, I don't know if it was owned by BlackRock, but it's or the ETFs are taking up that much percentage. But anyways, what are your overall thoughts on, like, does that change how Bitcoin was meant to be utilized, or no? Is that just par for the course?
In my opinion, no. And this is a complex topic that a lot of people in my opinion, misunderstand. Bitcoin is money. It was designed to be money. And a lot of people misunderstand what money is. People assume money has to be usable and immediately spendable. And what I tell people is, yes, ultimately money has to be usable and spendable in the market, but the more important function for money is for it to hold value, for money itself to have the value that it's supposed to have, that you exchange your labor into money in the first place. So I tell people, if you don't mind, I'm going to go into this little short explanation. Why does humanity need money? It's because when we work, whatever job we work, either back several thousand years ago, or whether it's just 5, 10, 20 years ago, whether it's my summer job or someone's internship or today's full-time day job, right? Why do we get paid in money and not in goods? It's because if we get paid in goods of the company, goods and services of the company you work for, there's no way you can consume all of that. Whether you're working at a Nike shoe factory or you're at a chicken egg factory, right? You can't take back all the eggs. You can't, because eggs will spoil, right? So the reason we have money is because then you can choose to spend it on and buy other things. So not only are you transferring the proceeds of your work and labor into other goods, you also allow it to transit over time. So it's multidimensional. You can spend it in other locations, you can spend it for other things, and you can spend it at a later point in time. That's the whole point of money. So good money will allow you to keep the savings that you worked hard on and spend it 5, 10, 20 years later on your children or on your retirement. That's what money is. And you could, at the same time, you could also spend it, thousands of miles away if you take a vacation to Japan and buy some sushi with it. Now, the American dollar that you get paid is money. But when you bring that $100 bill to Japan, you can't pay for sushi in Japan with a $100 bill, nor can you pay for your croissants and your steaks in Paris with $100 bill. You have to exchange it, right? So the fact that the US dollar bill is not spendable in Paris and in Tokyo doesn't mean that the US dollar is not money. And that's why I explain to people. For me, Bitcoin, I've been investing, been following Bitcoin for the last 13 years. Fundamentally, it's money. And by the way, it's taken a lot of years for me to come to this, core realization. It's not something I discovered or realized 13 years ago. So when you said like, oh, what if, these BlackRock or other ETFs or allocate or holding 10, 20% of the world's Bitcoin, no big deal, because there's 80% left. And even if the big guys are holding 80%, right? This is the thing, this thought experiment. Even if they're holding 80% of the world's supply of Bitcoin, the reality is they can never get to 100%. And the reality is that, let's say in this case, there's 20% left. And the rest of us normal people will have allocation of the remaining 20%. Some richer people will have more. Some regular people will have less. And Bitcoin, we know it's only 21 million Bitcoin, but each Bitcoin has 100 million Satoshis. So really there's a lot to go around, right? So in terms of money, it doesn't make it unusable or affect that at all. So that's why people say, oh, for example, I recently bought a Tesla car, and I effectively bought it with Bitcoin, even though I did not pay the dealership in Bitcoin. It was a regular US bank transfer. Well, but then Bobby, what do you mean by you paid for your Tesla with Bitcoin? But what happened was I can sell some of the Bitcoins I invested early, and that become a sell on an exchange, OTC platform, whatnot, and that dollar will go into the banking system, and I would have to pay the proper taxes in accordance with my tax jurisdiction. In the US, we pay capital gains tax, and then the proceeds I can then spend it to buy, whether it's a Tesla car or buy this can of Coke, right? So it's all part of the same thing.
It's interesting because you talked about how your thoughts around Bitcoin have kind of evolved over the years. But if we go back to 13 years ago, my understanding was that it was your brother, Charlie, who introduced you to the concept. So kind of time travel back to that conversation, if you will. Like, what did that look like when Charlie's telling you that? And was it for you? I mean, you were involved in the tech sector already. Was it an aha moment right away, or did it take you some time to like really understand that this was something you were going to be involved with?
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to talk about that. It was 13 years ago, 2011. It was in the springtime. I forgot exactly when, but we had one of those long distance phone calls. I was living in China, in Shanghai. He was living in the Bay Area. Back in 2011, I had just moved to China for about 3-4 years, and I was working there in the tech sector. I was working at must have been, let me think, must have been. Yeah, I was about to go join Walmart. I was previously I was a CTO at SMG Best TV at the time. So when he told me about it, so there has to be a prelude to this conversation, and that will help people make sense of what's happened. So he and I were both early investors in gold, and this is very important. Okay, and the reason behind that is because our father, he's a big gold bug, right? You've heard the term gold bug. So he's really investing. He really likes gold. He trades gold for a living, for his second career, so to speak. Our grandfather is also a gold bug. And there's a story in my book about how my grandparents fled Shanghai to Hong Kong, carrying gold bars with them, smuggling them into Hong Kong. And that's how they got their life started in Hong Kong. So the reason you have to understand gold is because you have to understand gold in order to understand the value of Bitcoin. And the reason is because just like gold or just like Bitcoin, gold fundamentally is not usable. Right? People say you can't eat it, you can't do anything with it. It's inert. It's one of the noble elements in the periodic table. Then why does it have value? Then you really have to understand. So Charlie and I, in the early 2000s, we lived together in the Silicon Valley. We shared an apartment. We invested and bought gold coins together. American Eagles, other collectible gold coins and China Panda coins. And we've had those conversations like what makes gold valuable. And that's a conversation into of itself. And we really understood why gold is valuable because it became a form of money. It became the go-to form of money due to its chemical properties. And we're talking about the fact that it's a stable element. It doesn't evaporate. It's also yet quite malleable in terms of human. You could, with the right amount of heat, you could turn it into other forms and shapes. And it's because it's an element and not a compound. Gold anywhere on Earth, it's indistinguishable from each other, right? If you chop down a tree and get a piece of wood, that's not an element. Wood is a compound. So a piece of wood from this tree, from this location, from this country is very different from a piece of wood in another location. Where there's a grain of sand, a piece of wood, or you see my point, right? Whereas gold is really the same. So so that makes it really good as a medium of exchange, and it's really dense. And what's really good about being dense is that you can't fake density. So think about it. You can make something lighter by putting air pockets in there, but you can't make something heavier by faking it. So that's why only lead was used as fool's gold. Lead was heavier and you could paint it gold and then people pass it off as gold. But if you slice it open, then you know it's not gold inside, right? So the point is that made it really hard to counterfeit. So like a gold coin of a certain size is really heavy compared to silver, which is much heavier compared to other metals, steel and so on and so forth. So for these reasons, gold became the go-to form of money. So Charlie and I had that. And separately, back in the early 2000s when I was working at Yahoo, when I graduated from Stanford, I'm also into like UFOs and aliens. So that's the
Yes.
topic. So I ran this program on a computer as like a screensaver called SETI at Home, SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It's like this crowdsourcing program you run on your computer and you do these calculations, help the SETI group see if alien radio signals or have alien sources. That whole project may not have gone anywhere, but I ran that on all my computers 24/7 for several years. So that's like the precursor to mining, right? So immediately when I heard about Bitcoin and mining, I was, oh yeah, I get it. It's that kind of stuff. So, and then plus we had a computer science background, Charlie and I. And back then we had Napster, peer-to-peer. We understood peer-to-peer sharing, the technologies, networking. When I studied computer science, I when I got my master's degree, I focused in systems. This is networking, graphics, and all really core stuff in computer science. So even though, I didn't contribute or write code to Bitcoin, but really by understanding the core concepts as a computer scientist, it really made sense. So I was fortunate with all that background, with the gold, with the SETI at home, with computer networking, peer-to-peer, and also economics, right? I'm a, quote unquote, I'm good with my finances and economics, so I cared about money and all that. So altogether, Bitcoin was that perfect thing that I really latched onto, right? So he and I latched onto it. He started mining early. I didn't start mining until much later. But I made a commitment to myself that if I ever did a startup, I would do it in Bitcoin. And that was a commitment I made to myself in June of 2011, right? By then I had a corporate job at Walmart e-commerce. So it's almost just a throwaway comment that I would ever do a startup, given that I was an executive at Walmart. But nonetheless, within 2 years, I had the chance to join forces and create BTCChina. So that was a lot of fun.
So Bobby, as you mentioned there, within 2 years, you start BTCChina. So what was that like? Because again, that background helps explain how you kind of grasped this concept so quickly, but it still seems very fast to go from discovering Bitcoin to right away being brave enough and having the conviction to launch China's first Bitcoin exchange. So what was that process like? And yeah, I guess that's the question. What gave you the conviction to do it?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. As in life, a lot of times you hear this. As we navigate the path of life, whether you're moderately successful or you're very successful, a lot of things happen just not planned, right? So my role at Walmart came to an end in about October of 2012. They had bigger corporate merger plans with the China business. So I left, and the natural thing for me to do at the time, this is at the end of 2012, was for me to look for another tech job, a management job in China, in Shanghai. That's where I was living. So the discussion was, should I stay in? I was trying to stay in Shanghai and look for a tech job, but most of the tech management jobs were in Beijing. That's where the tech center is in China. And I didn't want to go to Beijing. I was reluctant. I interviewed a few companies. I had one opportunity, but I ultimately passed on it and decided that, hey, maybe what I should do is go back to my comment I made, a year and a half ago, and maybe do a startup. Why not do a startup and do it in Bitcoin? And Bitcoin just went through its first halving at the time in November of 2012. So that's when I started looking into investing in Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin. In 2011, I did some mining, but I didn't really go out and buy Bitcoin using money. Okay, I didn't invest in it in a hardcore way. But by the end of 2012, early 2013, that's when I started, hey, I'm going to put some money in Bitcoin. And that's when I was looking into exchanges and all that. And 1 + 1 together, I said, hey, BTCChina is Charlie actually mentioned it. Look at BTCChina. It's the biggest exchange in China. It's a website that was started by my two co-founders. And then, so I, just on a whim, I messaged them. I said, hey, I want to meet with you guys and maybe join forces and launch this as a really, really big venture-backed startup to corner the market in China. So I met with them in February of 2013. I flew up to Beijing to meet with my two co-founders, and we had a good dinner. We chatted all night, and we came to terms. We said, hey, I want to put on my hand and volunteer to be the CEO, to go raise venture funding and really run this company as a startup, and become co-founder and become like a Silicon Valley type of startup. Because back then it was just a website. It was a two-man show website, kind of like a lifestyle business, and it wasn't really like a venture startup. So they agreed, and they sold me some shares of the company, and we took it to the next level. And we were the first crypto exchange in Asia to get venture funding. We raised, I think it was $5 million back in the spring of 2013. And I became CEO, co-founder. And that year, we built up the product and the platform and got in a lot of new users. And that year was the key year for BTCChina, 2013. For the rest of that year, our volumes were higher and higher. More and more people came over. We were the first exchange running in China. That website's been running since June of 2011. And we upgraded the technology and a lot of stuff. And by the end of 2013, we knew that if you guys follow the prices, that was the first real bull market. That's when Bitcoin crossed over $1,000. And that's when we also became the world's largest exchange by trading volume. That's when we eclipsed Mt. Gox. So what we didn't know, what we found out later in hindsight was Mt. Gox was having trouble all of 2013. With their Willy bot and all that stuff. And that's why Mt. Gox crashed and went bankrupt in 2014 in early, I think it was January, February. But nonetheless, that's what put us on the map, BTCChina being the world's largest exchange at the end of 2013 for the first bull market. And that was fueled by, I would say that was fueled by the demand in China, the trading volumes and all that. So it was huge. Yeah.
And it's our understanding that crypto trading and mining has been banned in China since 2021. What is the current state of crypto in China? And what's the general consensus, or how do people in China feel about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
Yeah, great question. So the media has always said, oh, China has banned Bitcoin, and that narrative has repeated itself over the years, right? Mm. So the first time China that came out was actually in December of 2013 when China banned Bitcoin, and then the price fell and all that stuff. So I've been in China all this time, witnessing all these bans and these different regulatory moves by these regulators in China. And you're right. Bitcoin and crypto mining and trading has been banned since 2021. But it's pretty much been that way for years, right? So these days, so the way China works is China is not a democracy. So it's an autocracy. It has a rubber stamp parliament, right? We sort of know that. And so the laws in China are passed by the parliament, right? By the I don't know what they call it, but this big body of lawmakers, and then they raise their hand like, oh yes, we all agree, we passed this law. But in the law books, cryptocurrency is not mentioned. There's no specific ban on mining or in the trading of cryptocurrency. Now there are laws about exchange platforms. You have to be a licensed exchange platform to offer exchange services, right? So that's how they sort of classify. Oh, therefore, if you're running a platform that's providing money exchanging, for this thing called cryptocurrency, well, you don't have a license to be an exchange, so you can't. So for a long time, we were calling ourselves a trading platform as opposed to an exchange. So in Chinese wording, these two are different. So we sort of got away with it by calling ourselves a trading platform and not as an exchange, because we don't have an exchange license. Okay. Now, but what's happening in China over the years is the government people, they get it. They know it's Bitcoin trading. They know it's crypto trading. They know it's mining. They know these mining operations take up a lot of electricity and blah, blah. And they don't want to see it. And the reason behind it is simply because crypto is economic freedom. It's freedom of money, right? If you look at Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, allowing it's decentralized, people have their own private keys, wallets, they generate their own private keys. They can send, receive without regards to controls and limits, right? That's the whole point of cryptocurrency, right? So that is economic and monetary freedom. And this is counter to how the Chinese government runs the country, which is a lot of control, a lot of brute force, a lot of through power and and control, right? So fundamentally, it's incompatible. I did not see it in 2013, and in hindsight, I thankfully did not see it, because if I made that connection, I would have not done it. I was like, oh, this is a dead end. Like Bitcoin will never take off in China because it's fundamentally incompatible with the communist government's style, right? So, but anyways, I was naive and I got into it, and and then I benefit from it financially and all that, and through experience and all that. But my point is that because Bitcoin and crypto is fundamentally incompatible with a communist authoritarian government. And by the way, if you look at the world, it's no surprise. The countries that allow for crypto and Bitcoin are mostly democratic countries, and the countries that sort of don't like it are mostly authoritarian, right? And I'm talking about the country level. So whether it's Russia, whether it's I don't want to name other countries, but you get my point. So so what they do in China is they enforce it through the local level, right? So the law doesn't say anything about Bitcoin for sure, nor about cryptocurrency, but through enforcement, through the regulators, they just discourage it. They don't allow banks to transact. If a bank finds out this transaction is related to cryptocurrency, they'll freeze your account and it'll be stuck in purgatory for 90 days or 6 months or longer. And people have made those mistakes and they know not to do it. So you can't, and companies are not allowed to hold Bitcoin or cryptocurrency on their balance sheet. So they can't buy, like MicroStrategy can buy Bitcoin, Tesla can buy Bitcoin, but companies in China cannot. For trade vendor payments, you cannot settle payments in Bitcoin either. So a lot of these rules are put in place. And so now it's effectively underground. So is there mining in Bitcoin and crypto? Yes, there still is. That's my understanding. But none of my immediate friends and family are doing it. It's more remote people, who have quote unquote good government connections. They're doing it secretly in underground places, using electricity and so on and so forth. And then is there trading of Bitcoin also? Yes, there is underground, people buying, selling either large amounts or small amounts, but it's all very hush hush. And it's certainly not in the open back, compared to back in the 5-10 years ago. Yeah.
So if we look back at this, this 13-year timeline, we've talked about the early introductions, you learning about it. We've talked about BTCChina. And then if we move down the timeline, you created Ballet. So really simply, what is Ballet? Why did you create it?
Yeah, Ballet is the company I'm running now. It's my second startup. It's in a crypto startup. Our key product is this thing. It's a card. It's a metal card. This happens to be gold plated. We have a version that is a standard stainless steel, and it's got the Bitcoin logo. But we have other logos. We could do other. But essentially, it's a cold storage device. So it's first of all, you feel it's cold, right? It's metal. It's also non-electronic. That's a very key point. So this card, it's the size and the shape and the thickness of a credit card, but it's made of metal. So it's very hefty. And this one is actually 24 karat gold plated. So if you put this in your wallet, this is probably the only true gold card you have, because a lot of credit cards, gold cards, they're not gold. They're just plastic with a goldish color. But this one actually has 24 karat gold on it. Now, it's not solid gold, otherwise it'd be too expensive. But you'll notice a sticker on here and a scratch off on the bottom. And this is the Ballet technology that allows us to offer a very easy, ready-to-use cold storage solution. So when you buy this from Ballet.com or Amazon, allows you to immediately store funds on here. We support over 1,000 different types of cryptocurrencies and NFTs. So of course, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, XRP, Dogecoin, all these other coins and NFTs, Bored Apes and, CryptoPunks, whatnot. And even support ordinals. Okay, Bitcoin ordinals, on-chain monkey, whatever you want. You can put it on this card, and this card has the digital credentials to unlock and generate your private key. But there's no need for backup because this is ready to go. And that's one of the key innovations. I've been in the industry for so long. We know about the standard way is for people to buy a cold storage wallet and generate their private key phrases, these 24 words or 12 words, and they have to back it up, and then they have to, do all these things, maintenance, software, firmware upgrades. So in my experience, for normal people who are not as technically savvy, there's a good chance they're going to screw it up. There's a good chance they're going to mismanage their seed phrases. There's a good chance they're going to forget, the passphrases or passwords they've assigned to it, and they get locked out, right? Especially when talking about in the frame of years, right? It's not something you just keep for a few weeks, right? So if you're investing, the keywords you're investing, if you're investing in crypto, whether it's Bitcoin or all these other coins, or even NFTs, right? Ordinals or whatnot, inscriptions. If you're investing in it, you want to hold it for a time frame of years. Then for normal people, this is, in my opinion, humble opinion, this is the best product you could use to store these things. And you could put Bitcoin on here, then you could also give it away as a gift to your children, to your parents, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, whatnot. And it's a bearer asset. And because like I told you about gold, bearer assets are basically things in this world where the value is in the physical good. There's no name assigned to it. So whether it's gold, diamonds, cash, even a bottle of red wine, that's a bearer asset. As opposed to a title asset are things where your name is assigned to it, kind of like a bank account, a brokerage account, or even an airline ticket. Movie tickets are still bearer assets. You go buy a movie ticket and you could give it to someone else to go watch a movie if you can't make it. But airline ticket, if you buy an airline ticket, it's in your name. You can't just say, "Oh, sorry, I can't make this flight. I'll let my brother go fly for me instead." You can't do that, right? So bearer assets is where you retain control. So Bitcoin is in fact a digital bearer asset. And what we've done is we've allowed Ballet's technology, we allow people to put digital bearer assets onto this physical card and turn it into a physical bearer asset where it's really easy to manage and safekeep. So with something like Ballet, whether it's your mother-in-law, or parents or grandparents, once you put the Bitcoin on here and the crypto on here, and it can hold all types of cryptos on here simultaneously, okay? It's not just one. As long as you don't lose this card, you will not get hacked. That's a promise we make as a company. We think it's amazingly easy to use. And recently we came up with this coin. I'll show it on camera. So basically we made a physical Bitcoin. By the way, we're not the first to invent this. A guy named Mike Caldwell created the first physical Bitcoin called Cassatius coin back in 2011, 12, 13. This is a copper coin.
So
and
cool.
It's 39 millimeters made of copper, and it's got the same Ballet technology on the back. And this is a loaded coin with it's called 1 million Bitcoin loaded with 0.001 Bitcoin. So today, with Bitcoin at $52,000, this coin has $52 worth of Bitcoin in it. And we sell this for about $80-85, I think, on our website, ballet.com.
And with the coin, so it comes with that when you buy it. Can you then, you can use it now as a wallet that you could add more to or you could spend from, kind of thing?
Well, so we don't call this a wallet for a few things. Great question. So this coin is the first product we're selling that's loaded with actual cryptocurrency. This is the first of the coins. So it's a Bitcoin in this first kind. So the denomination is fixed at 1 million Bitcoin, 0.001 BTC. So when you buy this, you buy one or buy 10. When it ships you in the mail, it will already have 0.001 Bitcoin in it. So some people buy 10 or 20 at a time, and they either as an investment or they give it out for Valentine's or whatnot, or Christmas gifts. So it's loaded and it's really easy. Fundamentally, people love this, right? Because for some reason, the shape of it, if I put 0.001 Bitcoin on here, for some reason, people prefer this version as opposed to the card version. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, that's fine. So we have a QR code on here and all that. You scan it with our app. You can check the balance. You can also scan it with a phone, and there's a webpage that show you how much is on here. We don't encourage you to load more BTC on there. And the reason is that the denomination says 1 million Bitcoin. In theory, if you really get technical, you could put like a full Bitcoin on here. You could put half a Bitcoin on here. But then the problem is then you might personally make a mistake. You think it's only 0.001, but when it has half a Bitcoin, you might misplace it and stuff like that. But this way, at least you see it, you know how much it is, then you're not going to get confused, okay? Now, so therefore, this is not a wallet. We call it just a cold storage of coin. You put the coin, and then later, whether it's next week or next year or in 10 years, you use the app, you peel the sticker, and then you can use it's a BIP38 open standard, by the way. So this is not a proprietary Ballet thing. So if Ballet goes out of business tomorrow, this coin and this card, all the assets on here will be retrievable by you without using any Ballet technology in the years to come. Mm-hmm. So when I started Ballet, that was very important to me because I know that not all companies succeed. You know, even though we want to try our best to be a very successful company, but one day we might fail and go bankrupt and be out of business. But I don't want any of my customers to lose any of their money. So we purposely made it we purposely used an open standard, the BIP38 standard, which has been around for over 10 years, by the way. So a few years from now, you could use the code in here and you can extract the Bitcoin, you send it to an exchange like Coinbase or Kraken or Bitstamp, and you can sell it for cash, or you can even send it to a friend, or you could just give this coin to a collector and then they might give you cash for it, as an example. And with the card, we also don't call it a wallet. And the reason is that when we launched 5 years ago, we mistakenly called ourselves a wallet. That got a lot of pushback. But the point is, it's really a cold storage card. It's really for people to put their assets on here meant for long-term investment. And long could mean 6 months for you, could mean 6 years for someone else. So it's really whatever you think is a long-term investment, okay? The reason is because if you want to move things off, you have to peel off the sticker, and the sticker has a tamper-evident logo on it and all that. So once you peel it off, you're exposing the digital information. And in theory, people can take a photo of it. But right now, if you take a photo of it, you can't get access to it. Like you could take a photo of this, you cannot steal this coin. By the way, I had 2 of these cards. There's a website called takebobbiesbitcoin.com. Essentially, I had these Ballet cards loaded with 1 Bitcoin each. Now it's $52,000, right? And essentially, I peeled off, you basically can't hack it. You can't hack it. The point is, you can take a photo of it. There's 2 pieces of information. There's one underneath the sticker, and there's another information underneath the scratch off. You need both to be able to steal the funds. If you have one of the 2, you'll never get the money. And that's what the website does. So it's really safe and allows regular people to store their stuff. So it's not meant for day-to-day use in and out. If you want to do a day-to-day use, you're probably better served downloading a crypto wallet on your phone, like a mobile app. But the downside with that is if you lose your phone, if your phone gets hacked, and then monies are gone, right? Whereas with this, you download our companion app called Ballet Crypto. The app will scan the card and tell you how much is on here, but the app will never have the credentials to steal your money. So even if you give the phone to someone else, they see you have $10,000 worth of crypto on these cards, they can never get to that money unless they have a card itself. Gotcha. So it's a different model.
And yeah, I mean, it's super interesting, right? It is a different model. It's not what you normally see in the space. And I think there's a lot of upsides to what you've created. I think the coin itself, that version, I mean, I can totally understand what you mean when you say some people just sort of gravitate towards that, because I see it and I'm like, man, I could purchase that and gift it to someone. I love the gifting aspect, because for my parents or my friends who are not as into the space, to be able to give them something physical, but where a card is abstract, it's like, okay, how do I use this card?
Exactly.
A coin is a coin. People just associate it with, and it's already got a value on it. I feel like it will click so much easier. So I love that about that concept. Yeah,
this is our best selling product so far. It's done really well. So I'm going to send you guys 1 each, and
I love
you guys
that.
can
Thank
hang
you.
out. Yeah.
But I did want to ask about the card, because it is a unique concept. Security is so important in this space. When it comes to cold storage in general, that's sort of that's the reason for cold storage. Now, in your case, there's these upsides, which is the ease of use, and it's physical and it's offline, and it just is there and works. But I'm still wrapping my head around from a security standpoint, because if you don't need as I understand it, you don't need to memorize this passphrase and things like that. You don't need this pass key. It's all baked in. Is the only sort of security flaw, if you will, that where it could get stolen is losing the card. Like you just have to protect that at all costs. Is that right?
Yeah. So the way it works is, let me take a step back to get a little bit technical, explain this. We've been doing this for the last 5 years. There's a part of the industry, some of the geeks hate our product, but I think our product is great for 99% of the people. The 99%, the non-geeks, the non-nerds, okay? And the way it works is, if you think about digital currency, wallets, addresses where you receive crypto, where the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then you send it out. Fundamentally comes down to something called cryptography. Basically, cryptography is a branch of mathematics that allows, basically Bitcoin and crypto is built on the concept of cryptography, addresses, on the blockchain and so on. So each address is essentially a locker, like a cubby box, a locker box, right? Whether it's airports or gym, you have a row of lockers. You have that locker number. The locker number that's on the outside is your locker number, and people can put money into that locker by sending crypto to it. Now, why is that your locker? It's because you are the only person in the world, in theory, who has a combination to unlock that locker box. So with a crypto address, Bitcoin address, anyone can send to it, but only one person who has a private key can retrieve from it. Okay, so the private key is generated by quote unquote by the user out of a huge range of possibilities. So it's not like there's only 128 lockers or 256 or 1,000. There's a gazillion. There's 100 gazillion combinations, and you pick one, and that's your locker. And then it has a corresponding public address, and that's what you tell people to send money to. And with your private key, you can then take money out. So obviously, we use that same concept. But what we do differently is we pre-generate the public address for you so that you don't need to do any work. So the QR code on this card is the Bitcoin deposit address. Even on this podcast, by showing this in the camera, people all over the world, whether today or next month or next year, can send Bitcoin to this card, and then I will receive it. But by showing this card, no one can take it out except for me, because I'm the person here having physical possession of this. Later, if I give this to my mother or give it to my children or send it in the mail to you, then whoever has that card can do it. And the way it works is to move the money off of it, you peel the sticker, and underneath this silver sticker, there's a yellow piece of sticker underneath it that has a different QR code. That's part A. And then underneath this scratch off, it says verified wallet passphrase scratch off. And it's like a lottery scratch off. Use a coin, you scratch it off. There's a bunch of letters and numbers underneath it. And that's part B. So with part A and part B, using the open standard BIP38 cryptography standard, you mix it up and you generate the private key that unlocks this locker box. Okay, and this is the BIP38 standard. What's amazing here is no one in the world actually knows a private key. Some people assume that, Ballet made this product, Ballet knows a private key. No, Ballet does not. These two parts, A and B, are made in different countries using different offline crypto entropy generating equipment.
Huh.
So it's entropy. Entropy is like random number. It's like rolling a dice, okay? You roll a bunch of dice to generate this part. You roll a bunch of dice to generate that part. So the two dice rolls are done in two different countries, separate teams, and then they come together on this card. And when it comes to on this card, it's on this one card. But no one gets to see both sides, right? The point is, only you, when you peel the sticker off and scratch this off, you can then get both parts, and then you use a software app. You could use your own software, or you could use the Ballet mobile app. You put it together, you generate the private key for the first time. And once you have the private key, then you can get access to whatever coins, whether it's like Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, ordinals, or NFTs. You can move it out to somewhere else. So that's why we call it a cold storage device. It's very safe. In the last 5 years, we have never been hacked. Okay. So as long as you didn't lose a card, you will still have it. It's great for estate planning. So for older people who are worried about, one day if they pass away, how will they transfer their crypto to their children and grandchildren? This is the perfect way, because there's no passwords. Remember, you never want to take crypto to the grave with you. There's so many examples of people who are super secure. They have these long passwords in their mind, and they get hit by a bus, or they have cancer and they die. And then their crypto just dies with them because they can't pass it on to their children and grandchildren. With Ballet, this never happens. So as long as you have that card, you have the stuff. And recently we announced that globally now Ballet, all of Ballet's cards on the blockchain, because we see it on the blockchain, there's now over $500 million worth of assets on all the Ballet products. So that's $500 million. That's a huge, huge accomplishment. Just in 5 years, in less than 5 years, we now have $500 million worth of assets on Ballet products. So a lot of people are trusting it. Our next milestone is 1 billion, and then we're off to the races.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Bobby, with the 99% comment, because you're right? And there's always going to be those arguments of like, what makes Bitcoin so great, and the fact of the decentralization, you have full security, full ownership. But let's be real. There's a reason adoption has taken a long time, because when I try to explain to my parents or even many of my friends who are the same age as me, just memorize the seed phrase, don't lose it, don't tell anyone it, never let anyone, already it's like, whoa, there's too much friction here. And that's the reality for a lot of people. And perhaps the technology advances, it gets simpler and still a secure way in the future. I think that's totally going to happen. It needs to. But a product like this, I think for most people, sure, you have the risk of losing the physical object. However, I think it makes a lot more sense for what people are used to. So not so much a question there, just I think more that you are on the right track there.
Yeah, absolutely. One more comment is, what I tell people is, what people hate, and this normal people, what they hate is to lose the digital assets when they haven't done anything wrong. And that's called being hacked. Okay. On the other hand, if they put $100 or $1,000 on this card and they put it in their lock or safe or somewhere, and then it gets stolen or they lose it, they misplace it doing a house move. Well, at that time, if they lose that crypto, well, it's on you. And they take ownership of it. They own it. They own up to it. They won't blame anyone else. But what people hate is when they get hacked, they're like, hey, what happened? I didn't do anything wrong, but that software has a bug in it and it got hacked. And that's what's really frustrating.
Yeah.
So we're preventing that class of mistakes and errors. So I'm really proud. Over the last 5 years, we've never had any hacks. People have never complained about having lost any coins. And I think it's going to continue. Yeah.
It's a very cool product. Shifting gears a little bit here, Bobby, I want to talk about an event we have coming up later this year, which is the Bitcoin Halving. You mentioned that this has happened a few times. So really, really quickly to start, maybe for our audience who are the newer people who aren't as familiar, what is the Bitcoin Halving, and what's your kind of predictions of how this will impact on this year?
This is amazing. The Bitcoin Halving is great. It's a festival. It's not later this year. It's actually coming up in around 2 months, in April.
That's right, April. Yes,
mid-April. Yeah. So soon enough. So what it is we know it as the Bitcoin Halving event, and it's the the fourth time. So we had it. The first one was in November 12th of 2012. The second was in, I think, is it now April of 2000. Oh, look at these balloons. This is awesome. This is the Apple. This is the video technology.
It is a celebration. It is a festival. Balloons are on the screen. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, a celebration. All right. Let's get some fireworks. All right. Okay. So it was November of 2012, and the second was in 2016. I think it was July 2006. Oh, sorry, it was May 2016. The third one, April, May, and then it was 2020, and now it's 2024. So this is the fourth halving event. So the way it works is that Bitcoin, when it was created 15 years ago, the inventor Satoshi Nakamoto, there's a lot of stories about who that person is and whatnot. He purposely created Bitcoin with a fixed amount of Bitcoin in circulation. He purposely wanted Bitcoin to only have 21 million. Now, the actual number doesn't matter. It could have been 42 million. It could have been 84 million, but he picked 21 million for whatever reasons. And what's important is that the number is going to stay 21 million. That's what's the important thing, okay? Now, at the time, he could have done a few things. And this is very important for the halving to explain the story. He could have given himself all 21 million Bitcoins and for himself to decide who to give it out to other people. He could have done that. That would have been horrible. If that happened, Bitcoin would not be where it is today. And the reason is it would be centralized. He would be the king, and people would not want to take Bitcoins from him, and some will get more, some will get less. His friends and family might get more, and so on. It would not be fair. And it would die it would just die. It would just not be popular. So the question is, it's an important question. How do you make sure the world will have 21 million Bitcoins distributed all over the world in a fair way that does not involve Satoshi himself deciding who to give out? So what he did was create a lottery system. He said, hey, we'll just create a lottery. Anyone who wants to come can get a free lottery ticket. And the lottery ticket will give you a chance to win some Bitcoins. And that's what happened. And this is what we call the block reward. So the lottery was set at every 10-minute interval. Roughly every 10 minutes, there's a lottery prize of 50 Bitcoins. And for the first few days, he was the only one picking up the lottery ticket. So he won all the Bitcoins, all the 50 Bitcoins each 10 minutes. So at the time, it was 7,200 Bitcoins per day. So he got a few thousands, tens of thousands of Bitcoins that way, which is okay for a few days. Okay, in the end, there's going to be 21 million. And then he got more people involved. One of the first people, famous person, was Halving. So he came in and he started mining. He got lottery tickets. So they had 50-50 chance and so on. So the point is, each day there's 7,200 Bitcoins that came into circulation every single day. Okay. And that's how, over the course of several years, you get a 21 million. But he didn't want all the Bitcoins to stop giving out after 8 years, right? So if you do the math on your calculator, if you do 50 Bitcoins every 10 minutes, and you have 60 minutes in a day, in an hour, and however many hours in a day, you come up with 7,200 Bitcoins per day. And you multiply that by how many days in the year, you do it for 8 years, that's 21 million Bitcoins. Okay, that's math. But he didn't want to do that. He wanted to spread this out over longer. So what he did was he said, okay, we'll do 50 Bitcoins every 10 minutes for the first 4 years. For the next 4 years, we'll reduce it by half. We'll only do 25 Bitcoins. And that's what happened. So every 4 years, the lottery prize goes down by half. So it started at 50 Bitcoins for the prize. Then it became 25 Bitcoins starting in 2012. And then in 2016, it went to 12.5 Bitcoins. And then in 2020, it went to 6.25 Bitcoins for the prize. And in April, in 2 months, we're going to see the price go down by half again. It's going to only be 3.125 Bitcoins for the lottery prize in April. Okay, so this is the fourth halving. And what that means also is cumulatively throughout the last 15 years, 15 years is a long time. There's been a lot of lottery prizes coming out. There's been over 840,000 lottery prizes that will go out by then. And essentially, about 20 million Bitcoins have already come into circulation. So the remaining 1 million Bitcoin will take another 100 years because the price is going to go lower and lower and lower. At some point, it's going to only be 0.0002 Bitcoins per prize. And that's going to taper down. And why is this important? It shows that it's working. It shows that the Bitcoin plan, the 21 million, is really going to be honored, that we're really going to see a maximum of 21 million, even though we may not be alive by then, because it's going to be 100 years later, okay? And secondly, it shows that the supply is really, really coming down to a very, very small limit. That's why it's going to be supply squeeze. That's why prices tend to go up around and after the Bitcoin halving. Okay, just to refresh people's memory, the first halving was November 2012, and we had a Bitcoin bull run in April of 2013 and a big run again in December of 2013, 6 months to a year later, okay? And the second halving happened in, I think it was April of 2016, okay? And then the bull run happened at the end of 16 and also December of 2017. The third halving happened in, I think it was, it was
May 2020, maybe.
Yeah, May of 2020. Yeah, May of 2020. Yeah, sorry. It was July of 2016. Now it was May of 2020. Yeah, not April. So May of 2020, that was his third halving, and then the bull run happened subsequently in year 2021, and it peaked out in November of 2021. So now the fourth halving is going to happen in April of 2024. And that's where we're seeing prices go up, right? Prices were at, under $20,000 last year, and now they're at 52,000. It's a 1 year high, and the all-time high is 69,000. So we're within striking distance of the all-time high. And I personally think this bull market run that's going to be sort of related to the block halving. I think the bull market run will happen and will start late this year and go into next year, meaning 2025. I just a personal thought. There's no evidence that it will be that way or it would not. So this is not investment advice. But I think for sure, I think it will go past 69,000 and it could easily go to $100,000 to $200,000. And the way I tell you that this is simple. Today, finally, again, Bitcoin, the whole value of Bitcoin, the market cap, the circulation value has now reached $1 trillion. $1 trillion. Now, $1 trillion is a lot of money for any one person. But if you look at something at a global nature, right, 1 trillion is nothing. You have companies that are worth trillions of dollars. You have nations that have trillions and trillions of dollars. You have whole asset classes that are hundreds of trillions of dollars. So my point is, for Bitcoin to go from 1 trillion to 5 trillion, it could happen in the flash of an eye.
Mm.
So what happens? So if Bitcoin goes from 1 trillion to 5 trillion, what's the price? The price is $250,000 per Bitcoin, which means this coin will be worth $250. That's all it means. Yeah.
Bobby, so interesting. You have a great way of being able to explain these, sometimes Bitcoin's an intimidating space. There's a lot to it, but you're able to explain it in really simple terms. We're getting close to the end of the conversation where we're going to ask you 3 questions that we ask every guest, including your brother, Charlie. So we'll see how your answers match up with what he said.
Awesome.
But before we get there, just quick question. So as you mentioned, late this year, likely going to see a bigger increase in the bull run. If there's some debate if we're already in the bull run and that type of thing.
Yeah, we hope to.
What do you think? We've talked about in some of the greater crypto industry, some of the trends. You've talked about the ICOs. You've talked about NFTs last bull run. If you had to crystal ball gaze, what do you think could be a defining trend of this next bull run?
You're right that every bull run has a story, and that's why it becomes a bull run. There has to be a craze. So the bull run in 13, or at least the bull run in 17 was fueled by the ICO craze. A lot of coins launching and stuff like that. Every bull run, there's a correction, a bear market, a lot of bad news. And you think about after 2021's bull market hitting $69,000 Bitcoin, we had some really bad news come out. It was a Luna, Terra Luna, the USDT. We had the 3 Arrow Capital, and we have FTX failure. We have Binance issues. And I don't think all the bad news is out yet. I think that's why it's going to take later this year to do it. Now, in terms of what is the story, right? At one point, it was altcoins. At one point, it was ICOs, and we had NFTs. You could argue DeFi, by the way. DeFi we had the summer of DeFi and the subsequent bull market. I actually don't know. So I don't think I can predict what is the story for the next bull run, but it's gonna be something insane, and it's gonna be something controversial. Meaning there will be conservative people who will say, no, this is terrible, but yet the mass market will be like all filled by it, and that's why there's a bull market, because the mass people rush in, the mass market rush in, they rush in, and that's what fuels a bull market. And unfortunately, caution. Here's a caution. Okay, the bull market will make a lot of money for some people, but a lot of people will lose money as well, but ultimately, when the bull market happens, the price goes up, and then there'll be people coming in and buying these assets, whether it's Bitcoin or other coins, at these high prices, and there'll be these bag holders at the top, and then the market will crash ultimately, and then there'll be bag holders for a few years. But we all make these mistakes. It's just a cyclical nature. It's no different than real estate stocks, right? So before real estate market crashed, there were people buying $1 million homes, overpaying for it, and then and then it crashes, and then they walk out. The banks lose money, they lose money. So that's again the nature of humanity. Yeah.
Bobby, as I mentioned, Ulf and I like to end every episode of Show Me the Crypto with the same 3 questions we ask every single guest. It's a segment we call You Had Me at Crypto. So Ulf is going to ask you those questions.
Okay. All right. You ready, Bobby?
Yeah.
All right. Now I'll just preface this. I'll ask you the question, and then I will tell you what your brother Charlie's answer was when we asked him when he was on our show, after your answer, and we'll just
answer.
for comparison.
After my answer. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the first question, who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
Who's my favorite person to follow in the crypto space? Gosh, that's a good one. Who do I so maybe I just say I follow Charlie. I do go to him for a lot of advice. He's a really smart guy, has really really deep insights, and I do occasionally go to him privately for perspective on things. So he's one of my fans. That he was also the one who introduced me to crypto.
That's awesome and hilarious, because I don't think any of our other guests have ever said this, but Charlie said, so he did say Udi Wertheimer. Yeah. I'm probably saying that last name wrong, but he also said himself.
He said himself. You guys had the same answer.
So you guessed his guess. Oh, that's funny. Awesome. Well, the second question, what will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
Oh, 10 years from now. So that will be February of 2034. And I'll say boldly it'll be safely over $1 million, probably in the $3 to $5 million range.
Nice, I love it.
Yeah.
Charlie's answer was 500 million to 1 million. No, 500,000 to 1 million.
Okay,
but that was in September 2021. So that again ramps up nicely with yours, almost the same answer, because that would have been 2031. En route to over 1 million, which is what you said.
True.
But he also said 500,000 for Litecoin. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I don't comment on Litecoin. Too many people ask me about Litecoin, and I just I'll defer to my brother.
All right. Okay, the third and final question. What is the most underrated project in the crypto space?
Underrated project.
Other than Ballet.
Other than Ballet. I'd probably say Ballet, but the reason I don't have any other better answers, because aside from how do I say this? So my full-time focus in the crypto these days is Ballet, right? This is my company. I think not a lot of crypto people come back for a second round in terms of entrepreneurship. Not a lot of people do. Some people just retire into the sunset. So I've decided to come back as a second round to really help the crypto community, the new people that will come in, to really offer them a safe solution for storing coins. And this is, by the way, this is the reason I had this problem 13 years ago. When I first learned about Bitcoin, I did not immediately go and spend hundreds or even $1,000s buying Bitcoin, because I was too computer science. And I was like, there's no safe solution. The Bitcoin D program, the Bitcoin core program that ran on the computer, on the Windows and the Mac, the wallet file was not even encrypted at the time. It was a plain text file listing all your private keys. That's how unsafe it was, right? The malware those days would steal the file and just steal all your coins. So my point was, I was late to the game to invest because I didn't have a good solution until 2013 and later. And Ballet to me is the most amazing this is self-touting, obviously a little bit biased, but I think it's one of the most amazing projects, and I'm really proud of this. I don't know where it's going to go, but I hope a lot of people discover it. I hope a lot of people give it a chance and bring more people into crypto. I think this is the safest solution to bring the next 1 billion people into Bitcoin and crypto. As for if you don't allow for Ballet, the issue is I honestly don't have a lot of bandwidth to keep track of all the other cryptos out there. I'm not some people go back and they just invest in a bunch of projects. And so I'm not that kind of person. So people ask me to invest. I generally say no, I don't invest in their projects because I have my own thing going for me. Yeah.
Well,
So sorry for that answer.
No, that's totally fair. I'll tell you what Charlie said though.
Yeah.
Charlie said at the time, so remember this was a while back, but he did say Lightning Network to him was the most underrated project in crypto.
Yeah. The issue, I hope Lightning can really get a foothold, but the issue with it is there's the fundamental issue with it is it has to be online. That there's an online component. You have to have this node running. I think that's one of the Achilles heels for Lightning, unfortunately. So I'm still, even for Ballet, we're thinking, how can we get more Lightning support built in? And it's one of the tough problems that I haven't cracked yet. Yeah.
Bobby, this has been an awesome conversation. When Ulf and I launched this podcast back in December 2020, you were one of the people on kind of our wish list guest list that we had. So it's been an honor to chat with you. Thank you for joining Ulf and I on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
Excellent.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.